Tonight, we continue our in-depth investigation into one of the most pressing issues of our time, the ongoing crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border. Over the past 4 years, the sheriffs and border agents at the Arizona border have been dealing with an unprecedented influx of undocumented immigrants. The numbers are staggering. Millions have crossed, and it's not just refugees and economic migrants. It's also those who could pose a significant threat to our national security. I recently had the opportunity to meet Tom Homan, the newly appointed Border Czar by President-elect Donald Trump, and I took him on a journey to the Arizona border to see firsthand the challenges that our law enforcement and local communities are facing. During our visit, Tom met with several sheriffs, including Cochise County Sheriff Mark Daniels and Pinell County Sheriff Mark Lamb. Now, to understand the ground level realities, they had very candid conversations.
This is our Border Operations Center, dedicated to these fine professionals. Chris is my deputy. His brother, Josh, works for the United States Border Patrol, attacked by 2 migrants.
I found myself in a fight for my life.
You've had your life on the line in this as well.
I was throwing spikes in the road. I broke my left femur, my right elbow, and had 6 strokes.
I consider you an American hero, and I'm honored to meet you two.
We're going to bring the transparency and get this story told.
This is the only place in the country I know that does this. You guys are one of the first press ever to be in this room. We have 1,200 cameras.
So these are hidden inside the terrain.
Yes.
You see 6 guys carrying backpacks. What happens?
So once we get a hit, we deploy our own border team.
This is forward-leaning.
Border Patrol reports arresting an undocumented immigrant after he illegally re-entered the country.
I was a Border Patrol agent. At one point, it broke me.
What do you mean?
19 dead people at my feet who baked to death. I keyed on a 5-year-old little boy wearing Batman underwear. Same underwear my son had. No one should suffer like that. And I know it can be prevented. When you have a secure border and people aren't making that journey, they're not dying.
This is the right guy for the job.
Yes. If we're going to protect children, we have to work together.
They've arrested 300 people on terrorist watch lists just on the border under these 4 years. How many of that 2.2 came from a country sponsoring terror? And that just scared the hell out of all of us.
John, how many illegal immigrants have come across your property?
Border Patrol's got 500,000.
I like to say it shocks me, but it doesn't.
But you shouldn't have to be used to that. That's the problem. The Arizona border is a daunting stretch of over 370 miles of rugged terrain, where the harsh desert landscape and remote areas make it a hotspot for illegal crossings. The wall, which was started under the Trump administration but left unfinished by the Biden administration, is more than just a physical barrier. It represents a divide between 2 nations and a multitude of unresolved issues. During our visit, Tom and I met up with Art Del Cueto, a veteran Border Patrol agent and vice president of the National Border Patrol Council. He shared his insights on why the wall remains unfinished, and how both the Mexican and U.S. governments have a critical role to play in addressing this crisis. Good to see you again, man. How are you?
How are you? I'm good.
I'm gonna file my first complaint. Why is that ladder laying over there? Why haven't the U.S. government seized that yet?
Well, because it's in Mexican land. But our neighbors to the south, who are so friendly and nice, they should cooperate and get that ladder out of there, right? You know what's going on. You know what needs to be done. And obviously, we're going to need a cooperation from our good friends on the south. And when you see something like that, you know they're not cooperating too much.
Let me ask you a question. I drove in here today, and it kind of pisses me off. I see all this material that the taxpayers paid for sitting on the side of the road rotting.
Well, it ends over there, as you can see. If you look up the hill, there's actually where they stopped the wall, and they said they weren't going to build any more wall. Day 1, they stopped building it, and they stopped the movement. And the scouts know that. I mean, just yesterday, you know, there was a report on how many groups are coming through Texas. Well, I think they had under 15 gotaways in Texas in one day. We had 59, close to 60 gotaways in Arizona.
And it's not affecting just Arizona because they're just passing through here, a lot of them. It's not just Arizona, they're on their way somewhere else.
Well, one thing I want you guys to realize and focus on, Tom Homan's not a politician. And he's the first one and one of the only ones that is talking about the missing children. Everyone else has been talking about groups coming across and, how can you go in and detain people and arrest them. No one's concerned about the children, or if they are, they're not being very vocal. Tom Homan's the first one that's been vocal, and he continues to be vocal because that's a real concern. And you make the perfect point. They're not staying here. They're going through here and they're going through other places in the United States.
Right. And Tom, you were saying there's like 340,000 missing children?
That we know about.
Those are just, that doesn't include the ones that we don't know about. And you do know that they're very likely been trafficked into sex trade, doing slave labor, doing as young as they can possibly stand up and use their hands. They're doing work in factories, putting things together, and they can be in New York, Chicago, anywhere.
And it's not just illegal entries either. Like, we've already found some of these children in slave labor, cleaning up entrails in a meatpacking plant at midnight shift, not getting paid. Even the ones this administration says they're bringing in through legal pathways, which aren't legal. The Biden administration stopped worksite enforcement operations. That's the #1 place we find victims of trafficking and forced labor. We're turning it all back on January 20th.
If you find 10,000 children that are missing out of that 300 plus, let's say you find 10,000 in a 30-day, 6-week period, what do you do with those 10,000 children?
We're going to reunite them with their parents. We can deal with immigration consequences next, but right now we got to save these children, get out of harm's way, and get them back to their relatives, and make sure these children are being taken care
Wherever
of.
they may be.
Wherever they may be.
Well, there's been no transparency with the NGOs. Let's keep that in mind. You got a lot of these groups that are taking in some of these juveniles. They're the ones that are finding, what relative is in the United States and turning those individuals. They didn't keep track of them. So everyone in a day and age when everyone wants transparency from Border Patrol and law enforcement officers, I think we need to have some transparency from these nonprofit organizations that are actually taking taxpayer money, and where are they taking the kids?
And these are NGOs.
NGOs, their books need to be opened as well.
Yeah, and that might be churches.
Exactly.
It could be churches, it could be charities, it could be wherever, but they're not keeping track of where these children are winding up.
Well, look, we found out from whistleblower not too long ago that when they released them to so-called vetted sponsors who weren't vetted very well, a lot of them weren't even fingerprinted. So how do you vet somebody against the criminal database, NCIC, if you don't run the fingerprints? That's the #1 way we find people that have been arrested and booked before, because their fingerprints are in the database. So look, the scariest thing to me, I've been frank about this, President Trump's serious about trying to find these children and save them. However, it's going to be hard because children don't have a footprint. Children don't have a digital footprint, right? They don't have driver's licenses, they don't have homes, they don't have a mortgage, they don't pay bills. So you and I, we have a footprint. People can find us because we have a digital footprint. Children don't. So we got to count on using the sponsors' information to find them, because they may have a footprint. But if they're not fingerprinting and they're not doing DNA testing, they're not doing proper vetting, they're going to be hard to find them.
But there'll be patterns. I've talked to y'all before. A lot of these are going to the same address. They're in a small group pattern of people, and then you can find those folks and find out where their money is going to and coming from, and track those people to those sweatshops, those children to those sweatshops, and find them there.
I mean, it's going to be an all-out effort. It's going to have to be a group effort from every law enforcement in the country, to be honest. So it's not going to be easy. No one said it is, but I think
it's got to be done.
How do you deal with that?
Over 500,000 kids have been smuggled across this border by criminal cartels under this administration.
But where do these children come from? Are they taken from their parents? Do their parents turn them over? If you're worried about IRS collection tactics, you don't have to face them alone. Tax Network USA is here to help. Tax Network USA is the nation's premier tax relief firm and has negotiated over $1 billion in tax relief for clients. Our services include penalty forgiveness, hardship programs where you might not have to repay anything until your tax debt expires, and offer in compromise solutions for lump sum settlements. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, our experts are ready to assist you. Even if you're behind behind on taxes due to missing personal or business records, Tax Network USA can guide you through the process. Tax season is long over, and for the IRS, that means it's collection season. To schedule complimentary consultation, call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dr. Phil. Don't let the IRS's aggressive tactics control your life. Take charge of your financial future. Visit tnusa.com/Dr. Phil today.
Mass deportations and military force against the cartels are just two things that Donald Trump has promised during his campaign. And with that comes the concern that the cartels will try to use the opportunity between now and Inauguration Day to smuggle as many people as they can across the border.
They have a president coming in that's made it very clear, and based on his track record, he will secure this border. He'll declare it an emergency based on what we've had for the last 4 years, and which means it'll seal that border.
As News Nation has just reported, the incoming Trump administration's vow to secure our border is sending shockwaves, particularly among the cartels. With illegal immigrants continuing to flood into the United States, even as President Biden remains in office, the question on everyone's mind is, what can we do as a country to stem this flow and protect our borders? To get to the heart of this issue, I traveled to the unfinished Arizona border wall with Tom Homan, the newly appointed Border Czar by President-elect Donald Trump. We met up with some high-level officials to understand the challenges and learn about potential solutions.
Because children don't have a footprint. Children don't have a digital footprint, right?
How do you deal with that?
There's 20,000 employees at ICE. There's 20,000 Border Patrol agents that are gonna be on this border. We need 1 million eyes. So we need the public to get engaged on this.
If nothing else, you got 911.
Right.
Call 911.
Yeah. And the thing they need to understand is they're better off doing that. That's why we don't want to demonize ICE. We don't want to demonize this process and realize they're going to get more compassion, more care, more medical attention, more everything if they call ICE. These children are going to be reunited with their families, and they're going to get more safe and compassionate care than they're getting where they are, because they're in a sweatshop. They could be with pedophiles. They could be not getting proper food, not any kind of medical care. If they call, they're going to get taken care of.
If you think about it, over 500,000 kids have been smuggled across this border by criminal cartels under this administration. Separated from their parents, put in the hands of a criminal cartel to be smuggled in the United States illegally. That's child abuse. If you and I did that, we'd be arrested for child abuse. So again, these cartels don't care about these kids. They don't care about, they're a commodity. It's money in their pockets. And that's why we find so many dead children and dead people on the border, because if they die, they're not worth anything. These cartels are animals. President Trump was right when he called them animals, because they are. They rape many women, they rape many children, and they don't care about the health and safety of these people. There's been times when I've been on the border where the Border Patrol approached a boat with a smuggler with a family, and as the Border Patrol approaches that boat, the smuggler is so concerned about being arrested, what do? They throw the child in the river, knowing the men and women wearing green with 60 pounds of gear on, so going to jump in the river to save that child. That's what cowards these people are.
Okay, this may be a dumb question, but where do these 300,000 children come from? Are they taken from their parents? Do their parents turn them over?
I've encountered, large groups of kids, 50 plus children. They're unaccompanied. You take them in, you have to give them over to the NGOs. The NGOs call somebody to come pick them up. They either pick them up or they fly them into the area but the NGO is just a regular individual, a regular employee. So they're not checking to see if whoever's taking that child is really, a relative or anything to do with that.
And there's been many investigations where some of these children are actually rented by the cartels. If you come with a child, you're not going to be detained, right? So the family groups won't be detained. So they'll rent a child to a male adult, use this child, get across the border, be released. Then the child goes back and be re-rented. Who knows what happens to that child and whose possession they're putting that child in?
Yeah, I've had border guards tell me, I've seen this child come through here 5 or 6 times. I recognize this child.
No, and there's been instances when you've had individuals that come across with a minor and say that it's their child, and when you run their fingerprints, they have a prior detention or they've been detained in another state for some type of child molestation charge, but they haven't been prosecuted yet. and wherever they were arrested before, they don't have the money to, send them back and arrest them. So they say, hey, we can't extradite that warrant, but they're asking for asylum and they're with a child, so they're walking away free as well.
Sometimes these people have been released before the vetting came back. And at least 2 occasions that I'm aware of, when that vetting came back, they were hot. But they're already released in the United States.
Already gone.
Yes.
Before it ever even gets back.
Yes.
Can't even find them.
So it's safe to say that one of the top priorities is to find and rescue as many of these 300,000 missing children as possible.
There's 3 top priorities, all starting on day 1. Secure the border, deportation operation, find those 300,000 children.
And find them to rescue them.
Find them to rescue them, exactly, that's the correct word, rescue them. I guarantee, not all of them, but many of them are living a life of hell right now.
And that clock's ticking, and they're waiting, and you're coming.
I'm coming. Along with the men and women, 20,000 men and women wearing green, and 20,000 men and women of ICE. We're all coming. And with luck and help with the local law enforcement, local law enforcement can play a big role in this.
And, we want to deputize everybody in America to look and see. And if you see something, say something. Because these children are looking, they're waiting. They're wanting to hear those footsteps coming down the hall and that door open, and it be somebody that's there to rescue them, to get them back to their family, or at least get them out of that hell and get them somewhere safe with some food, a clean bed, a decent meal, out of that torture. You can be the person that causes that to happen. So if you see something, you got to say something, you got to do something. Those kids are waiting to hear those footsteps come down that hallway, not to give them pain, but to give them a rescue. That's what they're looking for. You can be part of the solution. Good to meet you.
My pleasure.
Tom,
Tom, with your position with Mr. Trump, we'd like to hear an overview of where you see the administration going and addressing the crisis at not just our southern border, but the northern border and even our coastal waters.
Well, President-elect Trump promising sweeping overhauls of U.S. immigration policy, including mass deportations. But sanctuary cities across the country are vowing to fight back.
I find it incredible you don't want to help remove public safety threats. But if you don't want to help, do not impede us. Do not knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE authorities, because that is a crime. And we'll prosecute those crimes.
As you just saw in that report from News Nation, incoming Border Czar Tom Homan is gearing up for a tough battle, particularly with sanctuary cities that are resisting President-elect Trump's mandate to end illegal immigration. To get to the heart of this issue, I brought Tom to the Arizona border, where we sat in on a special meeting with Border Patrol officers and the National Sheriff's Association. Tom is keen on collaborating with local law enforcement, particularly sheriffs, to enforce immigration laws and secure our borders. Here you are getting a sneak peek into Tom's strategy beginning on January 21.
Hey, guys.
I'm John Leonard.
How you doing, John?
Nice to see you.
I'm doing.
Nice to see you, sir. John Leonard.
Good to meet you.
My pleasure.
Tom,
Mr. President, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. And we appreciate Tom and Dr. Phil and all of you in that room. Thank you for reaching out to us and taking the time. I know you're extremely busy. But Tom, with your position with Mr. Trump, we are, of course, beyond measure of excited and encouraged for the collaboration and the willingness to work with the sheriffs across this country. And we applaud you for being down there on the border with Sheriff Daniels and taking this thing bull by the horns, if you will. So, sir, we are open-eared. We'd like to hear your thoughts and an overview of where you see the administration going and addressing the crisis at not just our southern border, but the northern border and even our coastal waters. So, sir, I will turn the floor over to you, if I may.
Well, I just want to start out, Sheriff, strategy right now, and we're still baking it. I've been down Mar-a-Lago a lot. So as far as the interior enforcement operation, there will be a mass deportation operation. Can't help it. On the heels of a mass illegal immigration crisis on the southern border, where 8 million plus have been released in the United States. The fact is, based on immigration court data over the last decade, 9 out of 10 will get an order removal. Those orders need to be executed. Because if they're not, then I don't know what the hell we're doing. Might as well shut down immigration court, take the Border Patrol off the border because there's no consequences. So there has to be a mass deportation. Now, where President Trump is committed, that we're going to prioritize that out of the gate on national security threats and public safety threats. And there's plenty of them. Right now, ICE has got over 700,000 illegal aliens with criminal convictions. They're going to be priority. And we're already working on locations and where we're going to find these people. So that'll be right out of the gate, national security threats. And the good news is, I've been out talking about these sanctuary cities that are threatening to stand in our way, and we're not going to allow that either. They cannot help. That's fine. You know, stand aside and let us do your work. However, there's a line they can't cross. And I've been all over national TV warning them. There's several statutes in federal criminal code. If they knowingly harbor or conceal an illegal alien from us, that is a felony. If they impede us, that is a felony. If you aid and abet, that's a felony. I'm not a U.S. attorney. I can't prosecute it, but I'll certainly present it for prosecution. So I'm hoping they put politics aside, knowing that we're pushing public safety threats as a priority. I would think any sheriff, any mayor, any governor would agree to take public safety threats out of their communities. So that's what we'll be concentrating on. Well, here's the issue, because we're going to be hammered on this. Well, you arrested non-criminals in this operation. You know, and why did we do that? Because you didn't let us into jail. Well, you forced us in the neighborhood to find the bad guy, and when we find him, he's probably with others. Well, guess what? They're coming too. So the more agents you let into jail, the less agents I have in the community. So they're going to get the exact result they don't want to get, and they're fighting against by being a sanctuary. So hopefully that changes. So that's a priority out of the gate. As far as the border, the Remain in Mexico program, already working on a conversation, put that back in place. That was a game changer with the Trump administration. It's number one, you can still claim asylum, but you're going to wait in Mexico until your hearing. That way you don't got to find you. Because like I said, 9 out of 10 will lose, then we got to find these people, and they're in the wind. And also third safe country agreements with the 3 Central American countries that if you're really escaping fear and persecution from El Salvador and you get to Mexico, that's where you should be claiming asylum for the first free country. Could you escape that fear and persecution? Remain in Mexico, third safe country, and end catch and release. That is a big one because we need beds. So right now, we got people working on the Hill, including myself, on trying to work funding. But beds are going to be a big cost. Transportation is a big cost. We need to look at ATHS and all the money they're giving these NGOs. That's going to stop day one. So that's billions of dollars. So right now we're working on the money because without the money, I can't buy the beds I need. I can't buy the transportation I need. The transition team is currently working with countries that don't want to take their people back. Well, President Trump will have personal conversations with them, and I think he'll be successful. So we got a president who's going to put America first, and he's going to pressure these countries to take their people back. If not, we're looking at third place country placements. It's going to cost us some money. It's going to cost some international aid, but they need to get the hell out of here. So we'll put them someplace else we have to. So that's the plan right now. So Remain in Mexico, third safe country, ending catch release. Again, we need those beds. The wall construction will continue. And the message we're sending right now, and we're going to start, matter of fact, Dr. Phil's going to help me on this. We need to start sending a message right now in all the Spanish language channels saying, look, if you're in the country illegally, you need to go home. Because we find you and deport you, you got a 20-year bar. You can't come back on a visitor visa. You can't come back on a tourist visa. If you had a U.S. citizen child here, he's not going to petition for you. So go back and try to do things the right way, because if we deport you and spend the money doing all this and we deport you formally, you got a bar. Now, as far as the others, I was asked this question yesterday on Phil's show. Well, you talk about the criminals, national security threats. How about everybody else? They're not off the table. Everybody we go to arrest is based on a target fugitive worksheet. We know exactly who we're going to go arrest. It's not going to be army tanks going down the cities and looking for people different than us and do this massive neighborhood sweeps. Not going to happen. And if anybody presses that to happen, I'll quit.
Every notification on your phone announces another wave, a hurricane threatening lives, an East Coast labor strike threatening our supply chain, an international conflict threatening our peace, or an assassination attempt threatening our democracy. Supply chains for medications can be unreliable, but there's a way to feel safer in this uncertain world. Please research how to get your own supply of medications in case of a small or more significant emergency. I urge you to invest in a Jace case today. It's an emergency medication kit containing life-saving antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You'll fill out a simple online evaluation and customize your case to include add-ons like ivermectin, EpiPens, and more. The time to prepare is right now. Mention my name and you can receive a discount on your Jace case. Just go to jace.com and enter promo PHIL at checkout. That's promo code PHIL at jace.com. Get the right meds the moment you need them.
Allies of the president-elect and some in the private sector are quietly preparing for a large-scale detainment and deportation of migrants in the United States.
We're going to have to seal up those borders. We have to let them come back in, but they have to come in legally.
You're here illegally. On top of the fact that you're here to commit crimes, you must be eliminated and removed immediately from the United States of America.
To implement President-elect Trump's strategy, it's going to take more than just policies. It's going to take teamwork and cooperation from multiple branches of government and law enforcement. I recently had the opportunity to join Tom Homan, the incoming Border Czar, as he called a special session with the National Sheriff's Association to lay out his action plan. This is a conversation you won't see anywhere else except Merit TV. And it's one that could shape the future of our border security.
While you talk about the criminals, national security threats, how about everybody else? They're not off the table. They can't be off the table, because like I just said, if we're going to spend billions of dollars on this whole process, border security, transportation, detention, immigration court, and the judge says you must leave, they got to leave. Because if they don't, might as well blow the whole system up, and you're never going to fix the southwest border. So they're on the table. There's be criminals, national security threats, and I'm thinking fugitives. I'm thinking the fugitives are the ones who had their day in court, they were order removed, and they're in the wind. They become fugitives. They're waiting around till the next administration comes in, hoping there's some amnesty. Well, that's not going to happen. We're going to find them. Now, as far as the non-criminals, fugitives be first. Then we got to look at case-by-case basis, right? If we find someone has a medical issue that we can't take care of, but he's got a heart condition or it's a difficult pregnancy, she's 9 months pregnant, we're not going to lock him up, right? But we will contact them. We can't lose the faith of the American people. We got to show them exactly what we're doing, as humane as it can be, and we need to take care of these folks. You know, when I was ICE director, we spent about $1 billion on our health care. Once they're in our custody, it's our responsibility to take care of these people, make sure, well, if they're in our custody, we take care of them. And you guys know the game. You guys do the same thing in your jails. So this will be a humane, targeted enforcement operation. Everybody we go to arrest is based on a target fugitive worksheet that has to be approved by a supervisor. We know exactly who we're going to go arrest, pretty much an idea where they're at, and if there's children in the home, there's a lot of work goes behind this. It's not going to be like you're reading from the left. There's going to be army tanks going down the cities and looking for people different than us and do this massive neighborhood sweeps. Not going to happen. And if anybody presses that to happen, I'll quit. This is going to be a targeted enforcement operation done professionally, because we can't lose the confidence of the American people that we're doing this right. And that's why I'm so grateful. I met Dr. Phil yesterday on the show. He has such a huge reach that he can help us be transparent and educate the American people on what we're doing.
You know, listen, we're all in on this. We can't have a country without a border, and there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. We have to put out a message. We can't lose this fight by default. So we have to put out a message that lets people know that this is a fair and humane process. Tom Homan cares very much about these people that are in the desert, just like you sheriffs do down here on the southern border. I've seen the humanitarian work that goes on. I see you go into the desert and you're not just carrying guns, you're carrying blankets, supplies, medicine, food, because you know you're going to find people that couldn't keep the pace and got left behind to die. This is about a nation of laws, and we're enforcing those laws, and we're doing it in a humane fashion. And we're going to put out the message that, listen, if you're in this country illegally, you need to leave. And then you need to try to come back here with a reason and a purpose. And if not, if you get found, you're gone. We've got to let them know that law enforcement, Border Patrol, they're not the enemy. They're standing in the gap to protect Americans. And they need to recognize that and appreciate who you are, and that you're stopping fentanyl flowing into this country. These are, at this point, over 60% of the drugs kids buy on the internet have lethal doses of fentanyl in them. You have a better than 1 in 2 chance of waking up dead if you take a pill off the internet. And we can do this.
This is Sheriff Donahue. Tom, to that point you just made, and it's very important for the folks on this call, and that is the terrorist organization declaration of these cartels. I know that President Trump has talked about that. We certainly appreciate that. And I think I speak for everyone here. We'd like to see that. And then also the threat of fentanyl along that same parallelism. Could you speak to that, or do you feel that you're able to speak to that today?
Well, look, I spoke on stage and I said that President Trump's going to designate them terrorist organizations and wipe them off the face of the earth. And, you know, and if Mexico don't want to help, he'll do it. The president's committed to this because they've killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. So I got full faith in this president. He's going to do the right thing. I've been sued many times for what they call family separation. I want to be clear about that. Because of the deaths on the border, the rapes, we decided, you know what? Maybe we start prosecuting people from coming across the border. Maybe they'll stop coming. Maybe less women get raped.
It's the season of giving, but not the season for going broke. Dr. Phil here with your mental health moment, brought to you by my good friends at Michael's. Your one-stop holiday shop to make the season bright. With everything you need to create a joyful holiday ambiance for every style, space, and budget. February is one of the worst months for depression because that's when the holiday bills hit your credit card statement. Right now, you need to decide how much money are you going to spend? How much money can you spend? How much money can you afford? Instead of trying to buy somebody a big screen TV or something else you can't afford, think about it. Maybe you want to buy a beautiful candle and sit down and write a heartfelt letter. Let people know beforehand, hey, please don't buy us expensive gifts. We can't do that this year, and it will be uncomfortable for us if you do. So we've set a limit. We're going to do what we can do and what we can live with after the fact. Or recommend having a secret Santa or something like that. But don't allow yourself to get pulled into a financial trap. Christmas has become a real commercial time, and it can take a year to get out from under it just to get back in it again. Think of how nice it will be to get through those holidays without any debt. Now that is a great gift for everybody you care about. Thanks again to Michael's for ensuring that holiday enthusiasts and last-minute shoppers can find what they need when they need it. Michael's, your destination for everything to create anything. In stores and online at michaels.com.
What is the first thing that you want the president-elect to do?
Conservative estimates say that there are at least 15 million illegals who have come into the country on Joe Biden's watch. It's my hope that we deport every single one of them that we can. You don't have Republicans in the House and the Senate who will fight back against President Trump to deport illegals and to secure the border. The American people are counting on us to do it, and that will be our focus.
It's one of the most contentious issues of our time. The upcoming mass deportation plan under President-elect Trump's administration. Tom Homan, the new Border Czar, has a clear plan to make this happen, and it begins with a focus on public safety. Tom's strategy is to prioritize deporting violent criminals and those who pose a significant threat to our citizens. I recently sat down with Tom, along with Sheriff Mark Daniels of Cochise County and Sheriff Mark Lamb of Pinell County at the Oletsky Border Operations Center to get the details on this plan and how local and state officials can help Tom. What's it mean to have a shorthand with somebody that's walked this border, been in those jobs, dealt with this border issue, to know that somebody knows what it is you're talking about the minute you start talking about it?
I've always said in law enforcement, the best leaders are the cops. Instead of blaming people like Tom Homan that says, I take my job serious, and that is enforce the rule of law. How about those sheriffs, police chiefs, or city mayors and state governors that say, we're not going to enforce the rule of law. We're not going to follow the rule of law or criticize a not plan before I've even seen it. I haven't seen it, you haven't seen it, because it's not finalized by this administration. How about we start looking at that?
When I do interviews and we talk about border security, you get the left sometimes, or some of the media says, well, you sound inhumane. There is nothing humane about an open border.
If you come in and find, whether it's because you're in there to arrest someone else, but you find an illegal immigrant mother that's breastfeeding a child that was born in the United States, you don't rip that child from that breastfeeding mother, separate them and send them different directions. What happens in that situation?
We won't detain them. We'll do an alternative to detention, whether it's a cell phone tracking device or something, because if we can't care for them in our facilities, we don't want to put them in harm's way. So if we can't treat them, then we got to find an alternative to that. They still attack Trump, attack me. I've been sued many times for what they call family separation. I want to be clear about that. Because of the deaths on the border, the rapes, the deaths, we decided, you know what? Maybe we start prosecuting people from coming across the border. Maybe they'll stop coming. Maybe less women get raped. Maybe less children die. So that was the whole purpose on zero tolerance. Now, it's unfortunate when you prosecute a parent that's with a child, they're going to be separated. I guarantee both of these men have separated families thousands of times. Because U.S. citizen parents, you get arrested and you're with a child, the parent goes to jail, and the child many times has to go to a relative or go to CPS, a state agency, right? That happens 1,000 times across this country, but when we did it on the border in an attempt to save lives, attempts to be humane, we're called all sorts of names, and that we did this just to punish people. No.
And they didn't lose 320,000 kids either.
Exactly. Humanity remains at ICE. These white people saying ICE needs to be abolished, it's inhumane, the Border Patrol's inhumane. No. The only humanity on that border are the men and women wearing green, or the men and women standing shoulder to shoulder with them from the sheriff's. That's the only humanity on that border. Ever since I've been announced as border czar, I've said, we're going to do a targeted enforcement operation. It will be as humane as we can make it.
And when you say targeted, and we're talking about mass deportation, you're not talking about coming into a neighborhood and everybody gets herded into a corral at some end. You're talking about targeting people because you've gone through data. You're going after the high-value targets to begin with. You're not just herding people down to the end of the street and putting them on a bus.
No. Every arrest ICE makes is a targeted enforcement operation. Matter of fact, there's what they call the fugitive operation sheet. They know exactly who they're looking for. They'll have his photograph, fingerprints, much information we can gather, whether from his immigration file or from his criminal file. So, no, it's not what you read in the paper. There's not going to be Army tanks running down a neighborhood looking for people different than them. We've got the highest detention standards in the industry. And to compare what ICE does to the Nazis is just insulting at the highest level.
You wouldn't put up with that?
No, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't put up with it if that was the plan. You wouldn't be sitting here right now.
I will not.
Why would we not want to be a partner on that? That's insane. Nothing's changed. It's got to go through the rule of law. It's got to be a process. And we're side by side with them.
This is not about people from Mexico. This is about people from Africa, from Ukraine, from Russia, from China, from Afghanistan, from Iraq, from Iran, from Uzbekistan. They come from all over. This has nothing to do with skin color, or this has to do with you broke the law and came into this country illegally, and we have a responsibility. We get tasked with the job of doing what is not always optically perfect. We get called in when somebody has broken the law or when somebody's going through the worst time in their life. And the border's no different. We're being called in because we have a problem. Cartels are taking advantage of our country. And just since President Trump has been elected and Tom Homan has been in front of the camera changing the narrative, we're seeing that the cartels are now pushing more groups through the desert, which is where Mark and I, Sheriff Daniels and I, have always had a battle with it. We're already seeing a change. The cartel's already moving back to their proven methods from decades. And now we know that we can attack those methods and have success stopping drugs and people from being trafficked in this country.
Is there going to be violence on the border from these cartels when it's shut down?
If there's any success to this interview here, besides what we've already talked about in a positive way, is the frustration by the cartels right now. This is not what they wanted. Over the last 4 years, they've had the will of the administration in D.C., because this has not been their priority. They have killed many Americans. They've exploited American, they've modern day slavery, they've maximized that. The non-political stats will show you that. But what we have now is administration, Tom Homan, the Border Czar, that's come in and said, enough's enough, no more. Think about that for them right now. They realize their business is in trouble, and I know I'm happy about that.
Because what you're doing is compressing the money flow. And when you compress the money flow, they're gonna fight over what money is left. We're already seeing it, you know, with the capture of Flaco Zambada. You're seeing that they're now fighting with the Chapitos, which are the El Chapo's sons. And what that's creating is power vacuums along the border. And we'd be naive to think that that's not gonna spill over into our country if we don't have like men like Sheriff Daniels, myself, Tom Homan standing guard at the border to say, not in our country.
If history will repeat itself, when President Trump, and Tom, you'll remember this, and Sheriff Lamb will, when President Trump was putting the pressure on the border back in his term, we had a shootout just south of our line. We watched it through the fence. 40 people were shot on the south side by the cartels. They drove into town in the back of pickups, long rifles, and started shooting and killing people. Local police from Mexico left the community unprotected while they were killing people in the street. They were walking across our border, our port of entries for help, and that's cartel members too. That machine, that SWAT machine right behind you, was sit at the port of entry. We took charge of that to protect our community. I see history repeating itself on that because the frustration is going to go very, very high like it is already, knowing Trump's in office and they got a border czar that's already sent the message, no more.
Well, thank you guys for helping to get this. I want this clear to American people. I don't care if you're in Omaha, Nebraska, or Spokane, Washington, New York City, or Southern Texas or Arizona. This affects Americans across the board.
Absolutely.
And they need to understand, if they're being critical here, what it is they're criticizing. This is the defense of America. Every American is affected, and everybody needs to take that on.
The problem is that the critics don't ever come down here. In 8 years, I have never had a single Democrat politician come and take me up on my offer to come tour the areas and see what you have come now twice to see in the last several months. They have shown no interest in that, yet they will vote on bills and they will critique people like us and say that we're inhumane or that we're racially profiling. We're protecting Americans. And I'm sorry if people don't always like the way that looks, but we've been tasked to do that. We've been elected to do that.
We're under attack here, and they need to know that.
And thank you for putting that out.
And look, Aristotle said the only way to avoid criticism is to do nothing, say nothing, or be nothing. And the only way we're going to take this back is it's going to have some criticism along with it, which is why we appreciate your ability to really share the narrative that we're doing God's work here.